Welcome back, Keith Tebow from FRCmedia. Thank you for joining us today. We've done some reporting over the last few weeks about some of the obstacles facing the Fall River School Department, primarily the allegations against Superintendent of Schools Matthew Malone. We started talking about this toward the end of the year when there were some complaints brought up against the superintendent. Since then, the school committee has voted to make some adjustments to the superintendent's contract. But since that, actually in the past week, there's been a lot more movement as there's been some communications that have been linked that have shown some more allegations against the school superintendent. And, the city council is starting to weigh in as well and providing some background and some scrutiny to the school committee and the school department in general and the superintendent. And I'm pleased to be joined now by one of the city councilors, City Councilor Shawn Cadime. Councilor, how are you today? Thanks for joining me.
Good. How are you, Keith?
I am doing well. Last week, a lot more came out on this. Some letters and emails were released about some of the allegations against the superintendent. Let me just ask you before we started, when did you first hear about some of these incidents? And, I guess how has it snowballed in terms of your thoughts on what should be happening to the superintendent?
Yeah, I had first heard about some of these allegations earlier on in terms of when the investigation was starting to take place by the school committee, and those conversations that I had were from employees that had intimate knowledge of what was going on. I know some of the school committee members want to state that there are leaks internally with their board members, but I can tell you honestly that a lot of the employees are reaching out to various individuals because they feel they need to speak out on this. So that's truly when I first heard it, and I was really trying to take a back seat because as a city council, we know what our role and jurisdiction is, and we appreciate our colleagues over on the school committee and expect them and expect that they'll do what's in the best interest of the school district and for education for our city. So, as I was saying, I was really looking to take a back seat, hopefully waiting to see them take the right course of action. When I found out that the superintendent wasn't put on paid administrative leave pending the investigation, that really kind of highlighted some red flags for me. And I think as an administrator personally, I know what the protocol and the procedures are for any type of accusation, whether there's any truth to the accusations that are behind them. The first step is to always put somebody on paid administrative leave to make sure that investigation is independent, to either clear or affirm the accusations that were, alleged against an individual. And what we found was obviously the superintendent wasn't put on leave, and the concern there is that he's allowed to continue to run the day-to-day operations while a investigation is going on. He's still allowed to interact with his administrative team, and that can create some concerns with the investigation, with employees not feeling comfortable enough to come forward and truly, describe the situations or the experiences that they've had because they feel there may be some retaliation or retribution, and they're fearful for their job. So that's truly when I really decided that I needed to kind of pay a little bit closer attention to what was transpiring.
Now, since then, of course, the school committee held a number of executive sessions. An investigation was had. We have yet to see the results of that investigation, but in the end, 4 of the 6 school committee members, with Mayor Paul Coogan recusing himself, voted to make some changes to the superintendent's contract, docking him a month's pay, and also giving them a little more flexibility in terms of any discipline moving forward. And then, we get these letters last week. And you have called right out for the superintendent to resign, and you question the integrity, if you will, especially of those 4 school committee members who voted to retain the superintendent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the reason, and I don't take that lightly, because they are my colleagues, but I got to be honest, as elected officials and as people who forget being elected officials, people who truly care about our city and care about the future of our city, you want to be invested in education. And I think at any point when you hear some of these allegations, we especially when we have a voice as elected officials and are elected to provide leadership, we need to act on that. I'm known as someone who is very vocal. Sometimes I'm very vocal on items when it's very unpopular to be vocal on those items. But at the end of the day, we tend to get some type of movement and understanding that, I'm being vocal on items that I feel passionate about, trying to right an injustice that we've seen. So to call out the school committee on actions that I feel are wholly inadequate, especially with the claims that are coming down, and allowing a negotiation of a contract, and then to hear behind the scenes that those 4 individuals are really considering renewing a contract of a superintendent who is creating a toxic work environment, has a toxic leadership. And by the way, it hasn't just started with this school district. It was funny because when Superintendent Malone was first hired, I had the opportunity to meet with him. And I talked to a couple of my colleagues and some members on the school committee, and I told them that I wasn't really high on the superintendent. I felt like it was all show, no substance. They kept on reassuring me he's the right choice. This is the guy. And to be quite honest, I was one of I guess a few elected officials who felt he wasn't the right person to lead our school district. So, regardless of that, I gave him the opportunity. We fast forward, and then we're hearing these allegations. We're hearing, and it's very clear. We have an individual who works for the IT department who had a stroke. I worked alongside him, or not alongside him, when I served on the school committee back in 2006, and that individual was there, so I'm very familiar with him. He has a stroke. He's got a disability now because of that stroke, and to hear the superintendent referring to him using the R word, or another profanity because his fingers are not working properly. He has to type with one finger. I think that in itself is irresponsible. I think it shouldn't be tolerated, especially when you start looking at a school district that is supposed to be providing education, is supposed to be providing a good example for students. And we've got a situation where the leader of the district is bullying people, is really discriminating against somebody's disability, and is not taking that seriously. The school committee, every single individual knew about what was going on. Individuals have called school committee members, had expressed conversations with them, detailing what was going on. Some of those, one of the 4 members there was told the individual that it would not take place on their watch, and they continued to do nothing about it. So I think it's incumbent upon us to really truly do what's right. And as I mentioned before, this is a pattern with Superintendent Malone. If you go back to Brockton, there are reports on his behavior in Brockton. If you go back to when he was tapped by Governor Patrick to serve as Secretary of Education, he had the same pattern there, and it just is consistent. And to see that come over with discrimination against one individual, and then to hear what he's doing to female employees as well, and to me is unbelievable, right? And the actions are not correlating to the outcome, or the disciplinary actions are not correlating to the severity of the situations. And I would call out every single one of those school committee members that supported him, and asked that if it was one of their family members, if it was one of their wives that were treated the way that Superintendent Malone is treating some of our employees, I would guarantee you that they would not tolerate that, and they would expect a lot more from the school committee if they weren't on the school committee. In fact, we saw them reaching out to the city council when we had a very similar situation with Mayor Carrere, and the bullying policies and tactics that were taking place under the Carrere administration. They were pinging us, the city council, to take a stance and do everything that we possibly could to make sure that we rectified and corrected the situation that was at hand, even when we didn't have the control or authority to do so. But we still took that stance, and we still did what we needed to do. And I'm just not seeing that from the school committee as it currently stands, outside of 2 members, Committeeman Aguirre and Committeeman Hart. Outside of those 2 individuals, I'm not really seeing anything from any of the other school committee members.
That leads to something else. We still don't know officially the motivations of the members of the school committee, specifically those 4 who voted to retain the superintendent currently. There's always a lot of talk, not only in Fall River, and this happens in a number of communities where, you're in a position of power, i.e. a school committee member, even a city councilor, and then, an issue may come up which may impact someone that that may be working within the school department or in a city. And people in Fall River will make it sound like it's only a Fall River thing, but it happens across the country in cities and towns that there are those conflicts. Could that be at play here, from what you know?
It could, but I think at the end of the day, I don't want to lose sight of what it is, and we need to dial it back and get back to the fundamentals. We've got a situation where we've got a individual who's being paid good money to run a school district, and is doing it in a negative way. And we've got an elected body who is choosing, at least the majority are choosing, to ignore the situation. And I say that because I've got information that I'm privy to by talking to employees. And we've got a situation where the contract for the superintendent was renegotiated. He was handed out a suspension for 1 month, but they broke it over, several weeks. So it doesn't necessarily impact him financially. And then the question comes out is $17,000, which is the equivalent of a month's reduction or a month's suspension. Does that really equate to the damages that all these employees are facing? And I can tell you right now that we've got an MCAD case that is going against the school department currently because of the superintendent. And based on my experience dealing with discrimination cases and things of that nature, and dealing with MCAD cases, this is at least a $500,000 settlement case or an award if it goes to court, if not more. We've got a situation where there's a whistleblower. We've got he's threatening somebody who tried to speak up for these women in the office. We've got the discrimination against the IT person. We've got claims from the women employees who are saying that there's advances that are being made. The C word is being used to describe his wife and other members of the staff in front of them, yelling. So I'm sure this happens, and it's not atypical for Fall River, but I'm sure this happens in other communities. But at the end of the day, the only thing that I'm really concerned about right now is the city of Fall River. All the employees that we serve are students in the future of our city moving forward. And I think it's important for us to make sure that we have the right people in leadership to really address these issues.
Let me ask you, Mayor Coogan recused himself from a vote and the discussion because his brother is the director of human resources, a direct, report to the superintendent. He was given a decision or an opinion from the state. Should the mayor be playing a bigger role in this as not only chair of the school committee, but also the mayor now that more of this has come to light?
That's a great question, because I think when you start looking at the conflict of interests that currently exist right now on the school committee, it is unbelievable. I think, in talking, and I had a conversation with Mayor Coogan, and I think Mayor Coogan is in the same opinion that we need to make some changes and we need to hold people accountable. But unfortunately, he requested an opinion from the State Ethics Commission. They ruled. I disagree with the opinion. Sometimes, you get opinions based on what you reveal to them. I can tell you that I've asked for the disclosure forms for all the other committee members from the city clerk. So these disclosure forms are basically supposed to highlight any conflict or perceived conflicts of interest that any type of member who has a voting interest in a particular item would have to disclose that, and it gets disclosed with the city clerk. I requested that yesterday. I got those disclosure forms back, and they're redacted. You've got disclosure forms being made for the public purpose that are being redacted. So when you start reading these disclosures, there are names being withheld. And from my standpoint, that's not truly providing the full disclosure and confidence that the public would expect. So if you've got a conflict, we need to know what the conflict is. Or if you have a perceived conflict, we need to know what that is. So if Mayor Coogan has a conflict and he's not able to sit in and take a vote because his brother is the director of HR, then I'm not quite sure how Mark Costa, the vice chairman, is able to sit in and take a vote on this disciplinary issue when his wife has just received a job in the nursing department just recently. I don't understand how Mimi Larrabee is able to take a vote when her stepbrother is the principal of Durfee High School. I'm not sure how Tom Corey is able to take votes while his daughter works in the school system. All of these individuals still report to the superintendent, and the superintendent has control to terminate those individuals. So if the state is making an argument that the mayor is not able to sit in on this and make the decisions. I'm not sure how those other 3 individuals are able to do that. And they file disclosures. I get that, but it's redacted. So, when you start pulling back some of the layers on these onions, it's a crazy web that we've got entangled in, and I think it doesn't smell right. It doesn't look right. And I think we're focused way too much on this particular issue. And the school committee is allowing this to become a distraction. And quite frankly, as one member of the council, I've said this on my social media, I will not stop until Superintendent Malone resigns or he is terminated, because I feel that passionately about the fact that he is not the right person to lead our school district or even to be involved in anything that has the brand Fall River in it. He is a disgrace. He is not the right person that we want representing the city of Fall River, and he needs to go.
Yeah. Let me ask you finally, with the separation of powers between the mayor and the council and the school committee, is there anything that the council can do? And secondly, do you think the public pressure is going to lead to some sort of resolution sooner rather than later?
Well, I hope so. I hope the pressure continues to lead and have these people that are in positions of authority to make a true decision, to reconsider their decisions and their actions that they have taken. I'm not sure. I mean, from the council standpoint, we don't have a whole lot of authority other than to speak up about it and to actually utilize our platform as city councilors to speak up for those individuals that do not have a voice or are afraid to use their voice. That's something I've always done. That's something I'm going to continue to do. And we need to correct the injustice. So I think working in tandem with the city council, the mayor, and hopefully try to convince those members on the school committee to revisit the situation. I can tell you that I'm not confident that let me take that back. I'm confident that this is not the last issue that we're going to be dealing with, and we'll have more issues coming down the line that they're gonna have every opportunity to try to address and vote on an issue whether or not they want to terminate. If Superintendent Malone was a true leader, he'd recognize that he clearly isn't the right individual for this position. He can see, and I'm sure he's well aware that the momentum is there to suggest that we do not support him. We don't want to see him in that position, and he should resign. But he's not that individual. He's a narcissist. He's going to continue to do what it is that he's done. He's going to continue to make excuses. He's going to apologize for using salty language and being mean, but he's not going to apologize for his actions and how he leads. Right? It's always a pivot move from him. And again, and I think it's because he's about the photo ops. It's all about public perception from his standpoint, and there's no true substance. And I don't expect anything to change from that, and I don't expect any real leadership coming from him. And I think at the end of the day, I think he recognizes that after this position, he's going to find it very, very difficult to find another superintendent position, and that's why we won't see him resign. But at the same point, if that's the case, then I think the school committee needs to look hard at his evaluation. And it's going to be interesting because his evaluation is coming up to see how he's evaluated as a superintendent and see how they consider that and all the other issues that we've addressed.
Yeah. In the meantime, as you said, this has become a distraction, and it's not in the best interest, obviously, of the school department, the employees, the students, and everyone. So it'll be something we'll be following. City Councilor Shawn Cadime, I appreciate your time. Good luck, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Hopefully it's something more positive the next time we speak.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for joining us today here on FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great day.